What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working? Brought to you by Regions. Today, folks, on the special edition of What's Working, as you know, we do the Tuesday, Thursday shows that are designed to focus on the COVID economy and reaction to the COVID economy with a focus on small businesses and how they can get through. We're taking a detour of this, and if you've seen any of the social media posts that the show has put out, we are going a bit away, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're going to get into momentarily. Prior to that, I want to really thank Trey Oliver. If you listened to yesterday evening's show, he was on at 6 p.m. Trey is the warden of the Mobile County Metro Jail, and gave us some really interesting insight on what it's like to do his job, as well as the interesting detour he has taken in beginning a career in a side hustle in art. One of the things that Trey said to me that stood out, that I heard again as I listened to the broadcast last night, is that if you're the father of sons, the grandfather of sons, the chances are, there are some odds, that you will meet Trey in his workplace location one of these days. And I recognize that as the father of two boys. And I want to say, Trey, I really, really like you and really, really want to thank you for your time spent on the show. Really generous stuff. Now, Trey's in law enforcement, 31 years in law enforcement, which brings me to the focus of today's show. I remember being told this years ago, and I didn't know what to make of it when I heard it. And it's always bounced around in my head. And it's this. Now listen closely because it sounds kind of tricky. You don't know what you don't know until you know you don't know it. You don't know what you don't know until you know you don't know it. And it has been very recently, certainly in the past 10 days, that I have become aware that there's something going on out there that I don't know about. The term I've heard, and we will discuss in a moment, willful ignorance. So let's give you a recap of what's going on here in our nation recently. George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis by a police officer. He pleaded, "I can't breathe." Before that, a guy named Ahmaud Arbery in Brunswick, Georgia, was jogging, and Gregory and Travis McMichael found him, didn't like what he was doing, where he was doing it, killed that man. There was a white woman in Central Park named Amy Cooper. She was letting her dog off the leash in a place in the park where dogs were supposed to be on this leash. Another man, a black man named Christian Cooper, was there bird watching, no relation between the two. And he asked Amy to put her dog back on the leash. He was enjoying the bird watching. Her reply ended up being she was going to call 911 and say, there is a black man threatening my life. Not a man threatening my life, a man threatening my life, but a black man's threatening my life. And not too much before that, a Yale graduate school was sleeping in the common room. She was a black woman. A white woman walked into the common room, saw a black woman sleeping in there, and called 911 and said, we have somebody in here that it shouldn't be here. And I want to also talk about Breonna Taylor. The police killed her in a storming a home not long ago. You don't know what you don't know until you know you don't know it. And it has become apparent to me as a 51-year-old white guy that there's something going on out there in our society that I am perhaps willfully ignorant and perhaps even blissfully ignorant of what's going on. So I decided to swallow the pill and educate myself on what is it that I don't know. Am I guilty of anything by living the way that I live? Am I vulnerable to anything? What should I teach my children? What's really going on out there? Now, my reaction to each of these incidents that I've listed is that it was an unfortunate event that these African-American people bumped into the people that they did. Those people that they bumped into were reactionary. I'm not like them. I separated myself from that. Yet I suspect there are a lot of people like me who say, gosh, it's not white people. It's the person that she bumped into, the person that he bumped into. I have a great friend who has always been able to tell me the truth and get to the bottom of these things. His name is Rosshiki Leatherwood. He's sitting right here next to me, and I asked him, if you come on the radio, will you answer this question? Cam, here is what a middle-aged, white-class, suburban white guy like you will never be able to understand. And we will start this conversation after this break. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by Regions. listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by Regions, and I'm sitting here in the studio with my friend Rosshiki Leatherwood. Rosshiki, thank you for your time. You've been on the show a couple of different times. Welcome back to What's Working and what's about to be a very interesting and, frankly, vulnerable conversation for a guy like me. Say thank you.
Thank you, Cam.
There you go. Appreciate that. I'm going to walk you through this. So let's begin with the conversation as we finished the previous break with it. What does a guy, I'm a 50-year-old, overweight, middle-aged white guy with thinning hair, what do I not understand about what's going on in your world and how it's different than from my own?
Cam, we're in 2020. And for any of us to be in 2020 and not understand the climate, what has been the climate of America since 1619 is what you call, what I rather call willful ignorance. This country was founded, and it wasn't founded in equality. So going back through history, you know, we have different things going along lines. Well, we deal with things we were not considered entire whole men, and they say it was just for the voting purposes. But any times it take 3 black men to equal up to 1 white man, and that's law, then where's the equality?
Right. I got it. But that's the past. I mean, but okay. Are you suggesting that still hasn't changed?
Remember, history isn't repeating itself. Life never changed. When I say that, if the Emancipation Proclamation was supposed to free the slaves and make us citizens,
right,
there never would have been a need for the Civil Rights Movement.
Right. Okay.
What was going on during the Civil Rights Movement is still happening today. So how is history repeating itself? What actually happened, it started to morph and started to change. And what we did was see certain individuals in my culture advance, and we, through the success of a few, we threw everybody on their back.
Like what? That's interesting.
You would take somebody like me who came up, single parent mom, poverty, the whole nine, and I've scrapped. I've went to prison, came out of prison, recreated myself, and have been successful in opening my own business up and maintaining that business. And people would love to say, if you can do it, why can't they do it?
Yeah.
Levels of indoctrination, what you're willing to buy into and what you're willing to get rid of. Me, myself, I hold myself accountable for everything. But the true matter of the fact is, my people have been indoctrinated, first of all, imagery. If you think about imagery, when I say white to you, what do you get? What would you think of when you say white?
A white person or just white?
White, the word white.
I think of a color. I think of a color swatch.
Okay, you play naive. What I would say is, when we refer to anything that's white, it is a symbol of purity, innocence,
okay,
angelic, right. When you think of black, what do you think of?
I get where you're going with
this. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
Black always holds negative connotations. Dark, dirty, unknown, the black hole, the dark forces, the black sheep of the family.
Yeah.
So then we take that imagery aspect of it, and then we bring religion off into it. You give the white savior. And that white savior started out as Jesus, even though he's a savior for those who believe in Christianity, for everybody. But when you got a group of people who didn't practice that, and all of a sudden you give them a white savior, then you give them doctrine saying, turn the other cheek. You know what I'm saying? You speak of Jesus being meek and humble. And then who does that benefit? Does that benefit the person in charge that will slap you on your cheek? Or does it benefit the person whose cheek getting slapped?
Right, right. So these are philosophies. These are
these. I guess you can call them philosophies.
Spiritualities.
Well, they come from, but this is what the majority of our country base their ideologies on.
Yeah.
So we go back. All the superheroes growing up. I was a young guy that loved the superheroes. You was we're close in age. Name me one black superhero we grew up to.
Oh boy, I can't think of one.
Give me anything positive from our childhood up to now outside of MLK that we had to look up to model ourselves after. I'm asking a middle-aged, middle-class white man.
Muhammad Ali was before me, but there was a man of great strength and power and purpose and conviction, and from what I could tell from the outside looking in, held himself to very countable standards.
And went to jail for holding himself.
Yeah, true.
Put him to jail. MLK, they love to quote MLK.
Yeah.
They love quoting MLK. He turned the other cheek, nonviolent stance. It was nonviolence only on one side.
Yeah. Okay.
And they killed him too.
So anything that disrupts the status quo is let's finish this. Anything this thought here. Anything that disrupts the status quo as held by the white man is going to be put down.
It's going to be put down.
Is that correct?
Okay. That is not an absolute, but history has shown itself to be as such.
Yes. Okay.
All right, let's think about it. Education. Even we go back, we got to go back to bring it forward. We go back through slavery time. Enslaved and free slaves were discouraged, except for religious purposes and religious instructions, to pursue any kind of education. Eventually, it was made illegal in all the southern states. So slaves being educated was illegal in southern states. So if you have somebody who's not able to achieve a higher aptitude, you control them better.
Yeah.
So it was believed that literacy was a threat to the institution of slavery.
Yeah, I understand that.
And so we look at all the inner city schools.
And you think that's being...
It's still to this day.
Intentionally carried on today.
To this day.
Today.
To this day. Even in Mobile. I can speak about Mobile with the Williams High School situation. My cousin, Lorenzo, we had talked about it last night, how they take allocated funds for this school, and if they don't get used, they don't put them back into that school, they put them everywhere else. So we look at my old school, LaFleur. They want to shut LaFleur down. LaFleur was the progenitor to all these other schools, to all these other programs you see, like the IB program. LaFleur High School was the first magnet school in Mobile.
Yeah. So, and again, you're asserting that we, the white class, is keeping this status quo by doing things of that nature.
I'm not to say all white people. There's no absolutes.
Okay.
There's no absolutes.
I understand that.
So, see, because you're not in a position of power to do that.
Yeah. Talk to me though about me.
About you. All right.
So the listening audience of this station is typically a 45-year-old white male, and I am duplicated by the thousands out there of people listening right now. I contain with me, based on our conversations, a daily heap of willful ignorance. Tell me about that. What do I not know?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
When was the last time you got pulled over?
It's been 20 years, I bet.
Law-abiding citizen.
Yeah.
When you got pulled over, did you worry about anything other than getting the ticket?
I kept my hands visible. I've always heard keep your hands visible, so I kept them on top of the steering wheel.
All right. Perfect example. So you were perfect in that encounter.
Yes.
History has shown me that a black man in that same situation can be perfect and still not make it home.
Okay.
And in recent years, it never stopped, but because we have social media and all these cameras now, everything is being, what it seems like a storm that's coming on is actually just highlighting what's been going on.
Yeah.
So as a black man, I have to be perfect in every encounter. Point and take. This guy, George Floyd, he was an innocent man.
Yeah.
Police got caught on about a counterfeit money that wasn't counterfeit. Goes outside, he tells him he's perfect. He's down, he's handcuffed, but he has a knee in his neck for what, 8-9 minutes?
8 minutes, yeah.
That goes against all protocol. I just watched a video the other day of a white man on the side of the road, traffic stop. He beats up 2 sheriff deputies, then take the sheriff deputy's car, takes off. A man that's in handcuffs, dead, a white man that beats up the police, you didn't even pull your gun.
Yeah. All right.
We have to be perfect in every situation when Y'all just have to show up.
React to my statement that it is unfortunate that these people found the police officer that they did. That is not a white issue. That's
no, it's not.
Overreacting police officer. That is an individual issue. So I immediately want to shove the responsibility over
everybody
to the individual who committed the abuse.
Well, it's not an individual. In George Floyd's death, what's got this perfect storm going on right now, it's not an individual. There was an individual that caused the death. Then there was a whole system that allowed all these things to come into play to happen. Okay, how many times can you have 18 complaints on your job and still keep your job?
No, and I know what you're referring to. He did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means the higher ups, internal affairs, his captain, his chief, his sergeant, whatever the case, everybody is responsible for that guy's death. So just calling for 4 people's death is not enough because this system allowed it. And just about every cop on that force that knew he was a counselor to the police department.
Yeah.
And anytime you have a system where you allow counselors to thrive and you keep making excuses for him, he should have either been at a desk, he should have had weekly, monthly, or either quarterly psyche valves going on. Mm-hmm. But no. So the whole department is responsible for the death of George Floyd, in my eyes.
Yeah. And you're saying this is typical.
No, I'm not saying that's typical. We're addressing this one situation.
Okay.
All right, perfect example. It happens, and that blue line, we have to erase the blue line. Because at the end of the day, they're still citizens.
Yeah.
So they cut off from us. As long as that blue line is there, they're not working for us. Because really and truthfully, the police department works for us.
Yeah. Yeah. It should be made up by us and work for us.
And it's made up of the citizens, but once the blue line is drawn, we have to erase the blue line. We don't need no more, there don't need to be any more training. It's just accountability.
So you're if I understand you correctly, no more diversity training. We don't need any more of that.
How much can you do it?
Awareness training. We don't need to have a national dialogue anymore about race and differences or anything like that. We need
accountability.
Greater accountability.
Accountability. Perfect example.
Yeah.
Okay. You kill a man, can you go home on paid leave?
I don't know how to answer this question.
Say no.
Say no. I said, well, no, of course I can.
You're going to get arrested that day.
Yeah, yeah.
He murdered a man.
Yeah. And I see.
All they had to do was issue those arrest warrants from the beginning. This would not be going on.
Yeah. So if they had you're suggesting they protected him. That
yes.
The system was in place to allow this to happen with no repercussions.
Again, let's go deeper into it. The medical examiner said he didn't die from the knee on the throat.
Yeah.
But then come back, an independent one said he definitely died from asphyxiation.
Yeah. So they've got layers of protection built in.
Come on.
Again, though, I want to say Minneapolis, man. Minneapolis is not Mobile, Alabama. Minneapolis is a strange and different place.
Every city is normal until something abnormal happens. We've had a situation like that with the Michael Moore case here that caused Chief Barber to have to be, because his wife made these comments and those racially insensitive comments. So that situation is another situation of white privilege, if you ask me. And I'm going to show you how it was white privilege. Chief.
1 minute. Keep going.
Chief gets pulled down from being the chief of police. We move up Chief Baptiste, well-deserving. I love the guy, stand-up guy. But then, rather than being demoted, he was promoted to public safety director, and he still runs the department.
Barber.
Yes.
Yeah.
How many people get demoted to get promoted?
Yeah. Yeah. It wouldn't have happened to a black man, is what you're saying. Not that way. Nothing like that.
Show me through history. We have to be perfect on every front.
Yeah.
You just got to show up.
Interesting. Well, I want to continue this. We're going to come back after the break here, and I want to read you something that I found about health and the Black Health versus the white health largely due to stress of feeling they have to be perfect all the time.
Yeah.
And we'll get that after break. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. I'm here with Rosshiki Leatherwood. What's Working is brought to you by Regions. We'll be right back. We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm here with Rosshiki Leatherwood, and I promised you when we got back I was going to read you something from an article that I pulled up to help me prepare, and it reads this. Black Americans between ages 35 and 64, 50% more likely to have high blood pressure, 3 times more likely to have kidney failure, 60% more likely to have diabetes than their white peers. It's racism and racial inequality with substantial consequences on the health of black women, which is what the article is about, and mothers. Theirs is a never-ending hypervigilance that we need to survive in a society that was founded on our subjugation. In other words, they have to behave all the time. There's pressure to behave, in your words, act perfectly all the time, that many of these diseases that I've just listed are a result of an unrelenting stress of being perfect all the time. So we could go into all these health issues, and I've never heard them related to the stress this way. But there are some people out there that are saying, but before we get into white versus black or whatever it may be where the true problems is, the biggest issues in the black community are black on black. Respond to that. Is it that what we're talking about here is really not consequential compared to the black on black crime?
All right. There is no such thing as black on black crime. There's crime, period. Like I said earlier, when you hear the word black, it always carries a negative connotation to it.
Right.
Why is it that the black culture always gets a label? So there's black on black crime, where it's the white on white crime, Latino on Latino, Italian on Italian. Why is it that the black people only carry a label when statistics show that more white people kill white people than blacks kill blacks?
Okay.
More Spanish kill Spanish people. That's proximity.
Right.
That's what it is. But why are we the only ones with that? That's a narrative that's being steered.
So you're suggesting that we have called it black on black crime
when it's just crime
in order to prejudice it in some way, to make sure people look away from their own crime and look towards somebody else and saying their problem is worse than mine. They need to fix themselves.
And that's the key thing. Okay, if we deal in any community, the people of a community harm themselves more than. So if you got an all black community, of course it's going to be black on black crime. Well, just crime. If you got people in the white community, it's going to be white on white crime.
Right.
So that's just that's common sense. That's crime by proximity.
Mm-hmm.
So, but why is it that it's the black that carries that? Well, and it get weaponized, but you never weaponize. When the last time you heard somebody weaponize white on white crime?
Never. I don't.
When was the last time?
Unless it was a white collar crime.
Even in America to this day, they say we're the United States, right? But every state is sovereign. So how are they united? They're not. I guess they're united by the federal government. But if every state is sovereign, then come on, really. So we think about it. So we have black people who have been labeled Negro, nigger. Might as well say it, because the audience have heard it. They've been labeled colored, Afro, the whole nine. And as American, put it right in front of it. Negro American, Afro American, African American, Black American, Spanish American, Mexican American. What are whites?
Yeah.
Just Americans?
Yeah.
But they came by boat also.
They did come by boat also. What you're suggesting
it's the divide.
Is race and the language that we use is a big part of the problem.
It is the problem. Race is America's favorite pastime.
It's America's favorite pastime. Go into that.
Okay, then everything is always comes back to race. Even the way the political parties are even structured. Republicans, Democrats are deemed blacks, just black. Republicans are deemed just whites, and it's crazy how we take up all these prefixes. We take up Republican, Independent, Democratic, Islam, Muslim, Catholic, Baptist, all this, but we forget to be humans.
Mm-hmm.
Once we strip everything off us, the common denominator is that we're all human, and we pick up all these different things and add them to ourselves to build ourselves up, to elevate ourselves. And now, the key thing is, the race is a facade. It's a facade for classism. It masks what's really going on. Because if you're a poor white guy in Sims or out in Omaha, and you're a poor black guy in Mobile or North Carolina, you're the same person to the 1%. And when I say, I don't want the audience to get it mixed up. When I say it's not the everyday white person that's implementing these systems, it is the elites. It's the people that set up these systems and hold these systems and haven't addressed these systems, because we're still fighting the same fight. We know this. We see this. The cry has been heard, and now you see the younger you see white people joining in the cry because they see it. People see it. So to say we don't see it right now is willful ignorance.
What do I do?
What do you do?
51-year-old, overweight, thinning-haired white guy who has finally asked the question, what do I not know? I've lived 51 years, most of them in this town, and plan to be here forever.
Mm-hmm.
Hope my kids will choose to stay here. And if I want to make it better, what do I, Cam Marston, need to do?
Cam Marston needs to be honest with himself about what's going on. And we need to start being proactive instead of reactive. See, back in the day when what got us all here was police brutality on George Floyd, what got us here. And before I go, I'm not saying that all the black problems are a product of white, because we've had black excellence. But when Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921, we had that. But the lower class whites didn't like that. And because a relationship that went awry, supposedly, or whatever the girl called rape, they came in and they burned everything down. We've had a blueprint. Desegregation, we gave up a lot of our stuff. We gave up a lot of our community, a lot of our businesses to assimilate to the white way of life.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had a blueprint. Before I address what you need to do, I want to address what we need to do as black people. We need to create an economic base. Because race, like I say, I've been saying it for years, race is a facade for classism. And America only respects the dollar. So when what you see going on now, all the looting and tearing up, it's hurting a lot of people's, but it's hurting a lot of good people, the innocent people, innocent black businesses, like the attorney, Moshe, her office got burned down. She's a black attorney.
Mm-hmm.
So it rains on the just as well as the unjust.
Mm-hmm.
But to win at any cost is not really winning, because everybody loses. So we need to establish an economic power structure, base. If you look how many times a dollar is circulated through any community, you can tell how viable that community is.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even have a black community in Mobile. Name me one black community.
I'd be hesitant to even try. In Mobile, you mean?
Yeah, one black community. Now, first you got to understand what a community is.
Okay.
You know what a community is.
I think I do, but I'm here today with you in front of me to tell me what I don't know.
What we need to do is first establish a community. We govern ourselves.
Yeah.
We establish, take over the businesses in the community. We control the dollar, how many times the dollar fluctuates. We have our own, just like take Spring Hill, you got your own banking system, you got your schools, you got your churches. Everything is self-contained.
Okay.
If you go to Hialeah, you got the Cubanos.
Yeah.
Up in Manhattan, it's separated by
boroughs, et cetera. Yeah,
exactly.
Neighborhoods.
And you name a borough, you can just about tell what demographic or what ethnicity a person lives in there. And they control who comes in, who buys. We have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We have to stop waiting for an apology. You don't owe me an apology because you didn't implement any of this stuff.
But what can I do? Let's go back to that.
Is be honest with yourself. And again, be proactive in helping establish things, helping bring things to light. So if we know that we have a police problem when it comes to interactions with the disenfranchised or the black community or whatever, what we should do is walk up to Chief Batiste, Barber, Mayor Stimson, and say, look, we need to have people in these communities who understand these communities, who reflect the community. If I go in Tomanville and I see a bunch of white cops in Tomanville that don't understand the nature of the people that's around, as a black man, you go to the gym, we aggressive, we loud, we play, we playful, and we hug. It looks aggressive if you don't know the culture.
Right.
It can be misconstrued. And you're quick to put your hand on the gun because you don't know. Then there's no relationship with the community that they serve. They sit in their police cars. How many police officers do you know that service Spring Hill?
I've seen a couple.
How many do you know?
I don't know any of them.
When I was growing up, we knew just about all of them. And they would come through, and they would catch us doing stuff. They'd rough us up, take us to our mom's house, drop us off on the front porch. They catch us drinking beer. They poured it out because they knew the kids in the community. They didn't have to pull their gun. They can call me by name. Rosshiki, Darryl, Derek. Meet me at your mama's house.
So you had a community.
Yes.
You had a community that was self-supporting. One of the things that you need to do, 1 minute to go, one of the things you need to do, the black community needs to do, is create these communities.
Yes.
But these communities must be created with economic base. And one of the things I can do is to promote that, to listen to it, to help it out in some way or another.
Insight, help pass legislation that all we want is equality. That's all we've ever wanted. Since we've been here, we've been trying to be American, but have been held out historically.
Yeah.
We've always tried.
So what do I do? Let me take this one to identify inequalities. What do I other than trying to, and we don't have much time left.
Yeah.
Where do I go when I identify the equalities? And what am I looking for?
Well, it's hard to see until it almost happens, but we know that the education needs to be there. Let's start with education. Let's start because making sure funds are allocated to the schools that are needed. The schools that need that, because it all starts in education. And college education is for everybody, but college isn't. We need to start identifying what kids what they're good with. If they're good with their hands, we send them to trade school. Promote education. That's the key thing. Educate these people. That's the problem. And we have to learn how to stop being emotional on both sides of the fence.
Yeah. But don't you feel like we've had this conversation before?
Me and you talk about everything.
Not you and me, but our communities, our society.
This country has always had this conversation.
But it's never done anything.
Because we're still trying to maintain a position.
Yeah.
Equality feels like oppression to the privileged.
Interesting. Rosshiki Leatherwood is a friend of mine, well-spoken, well-thought, and well thought of. He and I will perhaps continue this conversation another time down the road. I think we've left a lot of meat on the bone. You're listening to What's Working. When we come back, I'm going to have Kim Garrett on the phone. She's the director of Victory Health Partners to send us off on a positive note. We'll be right back. We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. I want to thank my friend Rosshiki Leatherwood for his time spent in the studio. I think if we had, a week, we still wouldn't flesh that conversation out. I do know that I'm grateful for it, and I've become immensely more aware and will become immensely more aware. If you could see the stack of papers that I brought in to help me prepare for this conversation, even that was revealing. It was, and I will have to use this term, that he gave me, some willful ignorance on my part. Now, let's change hats here. You'll know at the end of each of this Tuesday, Thursday show, we try to put somebody on to give us a really spirited, uplift, future-focused highlight of the day, something that's going to get some pep in our step. And I want to introduce you to Kim Garrett. Kim is the director of Victory Health Partners. She's responsible for and oversees clinical operations, development, and advancement of opportunities for growth of resources and partnerships to further the mission of Victory Health Partners, with 10 years of experience in development and leadership in the nonprofit sector. Kim, thank you so much. Welcome to What's Working.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Tell us a little bit about Victory Health Partners, more than what I just read in your bio. Who are you? What do you do? Tell me how long you've been around, all that stuff.
Sure. So we were founded in 2003, and the concept and really the heart of Victory began in the foreign mission field. Dr. Robert Lightfoot, who was a general surgeon at the time, and his wife, Tammy, started serving on mission trips in Central and South America. And it was really during those trips of serving the underserved that their hearts were turned, and they really gained that passion. But they knew that they weren't supposed to serve in Venezuela or Guatemala, but right here in Mobile. So they came back and started talking to the medical community and just every physician and the hospitalist that they could get in front of. And time again, it was this low to moderate income adults who were uninsured that were just falling within the gap. So that's who Victory serves. And we opened in January 2003. We saw 12 patients the first day, just really as a primary care clinic. And fast forward 18 years, we have over 24,000 patient files. And while we just have this one location in Mobile, we serve uninsured adults from about 25 counties in Alabama, 11 in Mississippi, and 8 in Florida, and really have grown to be a multi-specialty clinic serving primary care, specialty care, dental, medications, mental health care. So really, our patients have such a broad spectrum of health care, and it's really due to the generosity and compassion of our partners.
So you must take funds to have this happen, and you must have volunteers. Are all your doctors and dentists and everything volunteers, or are they on staff?
We have 2 doctors on staff, and we have a counselor on staff, but everybody else, they're volunteers, which is remarkable. So we have doctors who come in, so neurologists, dentists, optometrists, other counselors who will come in to the clinic, and then we have about 150 specialists who will see our patients in their own offices. So if someone needs a pacemaker, if someone needs to go see a chiropractor, they'll be seen in their offices for a much more affordable copayment, which is just life-saving for our patients.
What about the partnerships that you've developed? Are they with the pharmaceutical companies? Are they all inside of Mobile, or do you have partnerships outside of Mobile that allow you to function the way you do?
We do have some in Baldwin County, but I will say it's mostly the Mobile medical community who's really rallied around that Victory. And for the pharmaceutical companies, Victory utilizes their patient assistant programs to get medications for our patients. So every company is required to have that patient assistant program for those who cannot afford their medicines. And so since we are getting free medicine, the process is quite lengthy to get enrolled into these programs and to get approved for your medicines. But once you do, you get them for free. And last year, it was about $38.4 million worth of free medicine that we were able to get our patients through these programs.
Good gracious. That sounds extraordinary to me.
Well, it's remarkable to see, when you get a community around a cause, just the impact that it's able to make, and how, and that's kind of the message I have for later on, just the strength of partnerships, that was put in our name with such a purpose, because we knew that in order to really care for our patients the way that we needed to, we would need a lot of partners.
Kim, we've got just a few seconds left. I finish this off here, and when you hear the music, we'll be going to the break. Give us a final words.
Well, final words is I want to talk about success and significance. Success is those are the measurables. Those are the impact numbers for the clinic. It's patients served. It's medication dispensed. All that. So that's important that we strive for success in our lives to where we work well and excellently, but also the significance that we see every day at the clinic, those are the stories, those are the lives changed that we're able to see. And as we go throughout our daily lives, seeing the significant work that we're able to do, it just goes a little bit deeper.
Kim Garrett is the director of Victory Health Partners here in Mobile. You can find them online and use your browser, search them up. Kim, thank you for what you do. Thank you for your time. Folks, you're listening to What's Working. We're working on new shows for next week. If you have ideas, give us a call, send us an email. What's Working is brought to you by Regions. Have a good weekend, everyone.